The night I learned my girlfriend had been sleeping with the one man she swore I didn't need to fear, something inside me cracked in a way it still hasn't fully healed. It didn't happen in a dramatic confrontation or a shocking discovery scene. No phone snatched from her hand, no lipstick on a collar, no secret messages popping up at midnight. It was quieter than that, almost casual. The kind of moment you replay in your head later and realize it was the sound of your life shifting off its axis. We'd been together 2.5 years. Long enough to build habits, to build plans, to build that dangerous little word, trust. I trusted her. When she laughed off my concerns. When she rolled her eyes and called me insecure. When she said, "He's just a coworker, relax." I wanted to be the kind of man who didn't hover, who didn't accuse, who didn't let jealousy rot something good. So I swallowed every flicker of doubt and told myself I was being mature. There were moments that pricked at me, sure. Late nights that ended with vague explanations. Her phone always turned face down on the table. The way she smiled at his name like it was a private joke. But love has a way of editing reality. I chose the version of events that let me sleep at night. I chose to believe her because believing her meant my world stayed intact. That evening, we were at a small gathering. Nothing special, just friends of friends, the kind of night where conversations blur into background noise. I was halfway through a drink when I heard someone mention her name and his in the same breath. It wasn't even meant for me, just an offhand comment, tossed like a pebble into a pond. But it rippled through my chest, cold and sudden. I felt my smile freeze. My ears burned. The room seemed to tilt, just slightly, like the floor had decided to betray me. I leaned in, pretending not to care, and asked what they meant. They looked at me like I'd asked something obvious. There was a pause, short, awkward, heavy. The kind of silence that tells you the truth before anyone opens their mouth. "Oh," the guy said, scratching the back of his neck. I thought you knew." That sentence landed harder than any confession could have. I thought you knew. Not "I'm sorry to tell you." Not "Are you okay?" Just the casual assumption that I was already in on the joke of my own humiliation. Knew what? I wanted to ask. My throat tightened around the words. My pulse thudded in my ears so loud I could barely hear anything else. Someone else shifted uncomfortably. Another person avoided my eyes. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm, like all the oxygen had been quietly siphoned away. Knew what? I managed, forcing a laugh that sounded wrong even to me. They exchanged glances. That's when it hit me. This wasn't new information to them. This was old news. Shared glances, half-smiles. The kind of looks people give when they're trying to decide how much truth you can handle without breaking in front of everyone. "You and her are solid, right?" someone asked, hedging. The way they asked it told me everything. My stomach dropped, slow and sickening. Like the moment a roller coaster tips over the edge and your body realizes gravity is no longer on your side. Another voice chimed in, softer. "I mean, they're close. Everyone knows that. Everyone." The word echoed in my skull. Everyone except me. I stood there nodding like an idiot, pretending to absorb this like normal gossip, like it wasn't unraveling the last 2.5 years of my life thread by thread. I finished my drink even though it tasted like metal now. I remember thinking stupidly that I should thank them for telling me, like this was some kind of favor. I left not long after, mumbling an excuse. The air outside was cold and sharp, and it burned my lungs in a way that felt deserved. I leaned against the wall, palms flat on the brick, and stared at the ground like it might offer me a version of reality I could still survive. Every memory started replaying with a new filter. The late nights, the inside jokes, the way people would go quiet when I walked into a room. All those moments I'd brushed off as nothing suddenly lined up into a story I'd never been allowed to read. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over her name. For a second, I considered not calling, pretending I hadn't heard anything, letting the lie keep breathing. Then I thought about the word "everyone" again, and hit dial. She picked up on the third ring, cheerful, like nothing in the world was wrong. "Hey, babe," she said. I could hear the smile in her voice. It made my chest tighten. "Everything okay?" I almost said yes. Habit is powerful like that. There's a reflex in loving someone, to protect the normalcy of the moment, to not rock the boat, to keep the illusion afloat a little longer. But the illusion was already leaking, and I was tired of mopping up water that wasn't mine to clean. "Are you with him?" I asked. Silence. Not the kind where someone is thinking. The kind where someone is deciding. "With who?" she said too quickly. That was the moment something in me hardened. Not into anger yet. Into clarity. A cold, steady clarity that made my hands stop shaking. "The guy you told me not to worry about," I said. "Your coworker. You're just a friend." Another pause. I could picture her face. Eyes darting, mind scrambling for a version of reality she could sell me. I'd seen that look before. I just hadn't wanted to name it. "No," she said. "Why would you even ask that?" I told her what I'd heard. Not dramatically, not loudly, just the facts laid out like evidence on a table. As I spoke, the line stayed quiet except for her breathing, shallow and uneven. Each exhale sounded like a door closing. When she finally spoke, her voice broke. "It's not what you think." There it was, the universal preface to every betrayal. I asked her to come over. Now, she hesitated, then agreed. I don't remember the rest of that call. I remember staring at my phone afterward, waiting for the screen to light up with a message saying it was all a misunderstanding. It never came. The minutes crawled. My apartment felt unfamiliar, like I'd walked into someone else's life by accident. I paced. I sat. I stood again. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps that weren't there yet. My mind kept offering me two versions of the future. One where this was all some stupid rumor, and one where I just lost the woman I thought I was going to build a life with. When the knock finally came, it was soft, careful, as if she already knew she was standing on the edge of something fragile. I opened the door, and the look on her face told me the truth before she said a single word. Her eyes were red, not from crying yet, but from the kind of emotional preparation people do before they walk into a burning building of their own making. She stepped inside like a guest in my life, not the person who used to leave her shoes by the door. I closed it behind her, and the sound felt final. The room held its breath. So did I. "Just say it," I told her. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded older, tired. "Don't warm me up. Don't frame it nicely. Just say what happened." She started crying anyway. Big, messy sobs that made her shoulders shake. For a second, instinct kicked in. Reach for her, pull her close, make it okay. I hated that part of myself in that moment. I hated how my body still recognized her pain as something I was responsible for. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said. It started slow. We were venting about work, and then about you and me, and then one night we had too much to drink and I asked because she stalled there, like if she didn't finish the sentence, the ending wouldn't exist. "And it happened," she whispered. The words fell between us, small and devastating. I waited for the rest. For the part where she said it was a one-time mistake. For the part where she said she stopped. She didn't rush to give me either. "How long?" I asked. She looked down at her hands. "A few months. A few months." I did the math without wanting to. Birthdays. Quiet nights. The time she told me she loved me and I believed her. All of it now stamped with a secret I hadn't consented to carry. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" I asked. She shook her head, tears streaking down her face. "I didn't want to hurt you." That sentence almost made me laugh. Almost. Instead, something hollowed out inside my chest, like a room being cleared of furniture. She hadn't spared me pain. She just delayed it and multiplied it. I stared at her and realized I wasn't just angry about the cheating. I was angry about the staging of my own ignorance. The way she'd let me walk into rooms where people knew more about my life than I did. The way I'd smiled and trusted her while I was apparently the last person in the city to get the memo. "Who knows?" I asked quietly. She hesitated again. That hesitation told me everything. "Who knows?" I repeated, my voice sharper now. She swallowed. I think people suspected. Some of my coworkers. A couple of friends. A couple. I thought about the looks at the party. The way the room had gone careful around me. The way everyone had seemed to already know. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. I wasn't just betrayed. I'd been displayed. The realization hit me in waves. This wasn't just something that happened to me in private. This had been happening around me, in rooms I'd stood in conversations I'd laughed through, in glances I'd never learned how to read. I felt small in my own apartment, like the walls had been inching closer while I wasn't looking. So I was the only idiot in the dark, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The words came out steady, which somehow made them feel crueler. "You're not an idiot," she said quickly, stepping toward me. "You trusted me. That's not." "Don't," I cut in. The word came out harder than I expected. "Don't dress this up like it's some noble trait that got bruised. You let me look stupid in front of people. You let me walk around thinking my relationship was solid while everyone else had front row seats to it falling apart." She reached for my arm, pulled away. The space between us felt necessary now, like oxygen. "I was going to end it with him," she said, the desperation creeping into her voice. "I swear, it didn't mean anything. It was a mistake." I stared at her, really stared, like I was trying to memorize the face of someone I might never allow this close to me again. "It meant enough to last months," I said. "It meant enough to lie to me every day. It meant enough to let me be the punchline to a joke I didn't know I was in." That's when it finally broke me. Not the image of her with him, not even the betrayal itself. It was the humiliation, the knowledge that I'd been quietly stripped of my dignity while still showing up as a loving partner. That my reality had been edited without my consent. "I didn't want to lose you," she whispered. "You already did," I said, and surprised myself with how true it felt. She sank onto the couch, crying into her hands now, the sound raw and ugly. I stood there, detached in a way that scared me. Love doesn't disappear in one moment, it drains out slowly, and then all at once you realize you're standing in the echo of where it used to be. I walked to the window, needing distance from her tears. Outside, life went on. Cars passed. People laughed somewhere down the street. The world hadn't noticed that mine had just collapsed. Behind me, she said my name, softly, like it still belonged to her. I didn't turn around, because I knew if I did, I might stay. I stood there longer than I meant to, staring out at a world that felt unfairly intact. The street light flickered. A couple walked past, close enough to share warmth in the cold. Ordinary scenes, sharp as glass against my chest. I wondered how many people around us were living inside secrets like mine. How many were smiling through stories they didn't know they were characters in. She called my name again. This time there was something like panic in it. The sound of someone realizing the ground is actually gone. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'll do anything. I'll cut him off. I'll tell people the truth. I turned then, not because I was tempted, but because I wanted to end this looking at her, not at the window. "You don't get to bargain with something you already spent," I said quietly. "You spent my trust. You spent my dignity. There's no refund for that." Her face crumpled. I didn't take pleasure in it. I just didn't feel responsible for it anymore. I grabbed my jacket. My keys felt heavier than they ever had, like they knew they were closing a door behind me. As I moved past her, she reached out again, stopping herself an inch from my sleeve. The restraint hurt more to see than the touch would have. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Somewhere I'm not the last person to find out about my own life." At the door I paused. Not for her, for myself. For the version of me that had believed in something real. "For what it's worth," I added, "the cheating hurts. But knowing I was quietly humiliated, that's the part one don't know how to forgive." I stepped into the hall. The door closed with a soft click that sounded nothing like the end of 2.5 years, but felt exactly like it. Even now, long after that night, the thought sneaks up on me. The rooms I stood in while everyone else knew. The smiles I gave while I was the only one not in on the truth. It still messes with my head sometimes. Not because I miss her, but because I miss the man I was before I learned how easy it is to be made small without ever being told. And that's the part I'm still learning to take back. Appreciate you listening. Subscribe and comment. It really helps the channel grow.